the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to this important broadcast. We're starting 33 minutes behind schedule for obvious reasons. I know you were enjoying defense briefings like myself. I didn't want it to end. That's what every Ambazonian wants, right? And we need to keep doing that in the hinterlands, getting into the peripheries. Reports are having it that the Republic of Cameroon, La République du Cameroon, is having an eye on the Bakassi Rich Oil Peninsula, which is rightfully Amazonian. So we've received diverse sides of the story. It would appear that some politicians who wish to entice their audience in Nigeria are taking advantage of a vulnerable public to insinuate that Bakassi perhaps could be Nigeria and the government in place is not doing enough to reclaim the land. The question tonight would be, who owns the land? That's the question we'll be answering with Barrister Tim, Barrister Fru, and Barrister Ghana. I'm still trying to connect him, and Pa Augustine Duncan. But without any waste of your time, we will begin the discussion right after this break. Stay tuned.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Once again, while I try to ensure that our panelists are in place, I'm calling on those who are watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. Do us the kind pleasure of sharing and telling somebody that we're live and we are about to start. Stay tuned.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Okay, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being patient. Because of the first briefing, we would have to start a little bit late. But we have 90 minutes to talk intensively. I find it difficulty to connect with Barrister Ghana. I hope he will be able to join us any moment from now. Let's get on to this talk. We've seen reports, some claiming Nigeria is dragging Cameroon to court. But we've read articles that are saying it is a clarification. Why the clarification after so many years? This party is claiming that they do not understand the document. Now, both elephants actually fighting on Bakassi apparently are not the owners of Bakassi. And that's the focus of this platform. You two gentlemen are speaking on behalf of the Ambazonia interim government and to educate the public so we know our stand as a people when it comes to the land that belongs to us, Bakassi. I would start with you, Barrister Mbisia. Good evening and welcome. It's nice having you. Happy New Year.
Uh, Thank you very much for having us once more. We thank the audience for being here, inquisitive to know much about maybe they did not know. We thank them for being able to listen and hear explanations that might clarify their doubts. Once more, thank you all. I think we all learned something from this discussion.
Barrister Fru, you're welcome. I'm
Thank
glad you
you.
were very punctual.
Thank you, Paddy. Thank you for inviting more. We are ready to discuss so that our people can learn.
Now, here is the point. Nigeria and La République du Cameroon have fought a war on Bakassi. That is where we should start. And then we'll get into the historicity and legality of that place. Who owns it? Why and how? And why do we have a quarrel on parties who supposedly are not owners? So I'm taking that with you, Barrister Bessia. The question is the war between Cameroon and La République du Cameroon and Nigeria some years ago was because of Bakassi, and it was a peaceful resolution and in the face of the UN Secretary General at the time, Kofi Annan. There was some entente, and La République du Cameroon regained custody. It would appear it wasn't full custody. These two parties were supposed to have an interest, or maybe some minerals that are found there. Bakassi is also among the richest places in the world. So talk to us. This war, how did it happen? Why did it happen? Let's start from there, Barrister Team, please.
For a start, it's good for us to understand that the two Cameroons, that is French speaking Cameroon and English speaking Cameroon, as a result of the division in 1919 after the First World War. That is the basis. What we call La République du Cameroun today never shared any boundary, land boundary or sea boundary with Nigeria. They shared boundaries to the west, from Lake Chad to the Atlantic Ocean, with the English administered Trust Territory of Cameroon that extended then from the Lake Chad to the Atlantic Ocean, which includes Bakassi. And so the claim of Nigeria and the claim of Cameroon, rightfully or wrongly, originate from one source only. They are based on the 1961 plebiscite, which ceded part of English-speaking Cameroon, the north, to Nigeria. Nigeria never had any land boundary with Cameroon, French-speaking Cameroon, anywhere in the world. And again, the southern part, which includes Bakassi, purportedly joined Cameroon. So whatever action or whatever war they were fighting was based on the claim of La République du Cameroun, as far as Bakassi is concerned, that southern Cameroon has joined them. They didn't have any other thing. Southern Cameroon had joined them by their own analogy in 1961 after the plebiscite. That's the root of their attachment. That's the root of their argument. And then fast forward. See, Bakassi is not, when they fight a war over Bakassi, they're not fighting the war over the citizens who live there. They're not fighting the war over those mangrove trees that grow there. The whole war is economic. It is based on the oil-rich nature of the land. It is based on the mineral resources that are found in the area called Bakassi, which mineral resources are in the subsoil. They spread to Nigeria, to the Niger Delta region. And so That was, and that is still the raison d'etre for the war. If a Cameroon was fighting, we weren't fighting because they wanted it in there, other than the oil and other gases that are found there. That's why if there's any complaint today by Nigeria, it is that Cameroon has not even respected the terms of the Green Tree that said that Cameroon will make the life of Nigerians living there better, to improve their living standards. Again, to be recalled that if there are 1,000 people living in Bakassi, 800 to 900 of them are Nigerians. So Nigeria, under the pretext of pretending to defend its citizens residing in a foreign land, has to fight with Cameroon. But fast forward in 2002, the World Court at The Hague came out with a judgment which stated clearly that Bakassi is Cameroon. What did they mean by Bakassi is Cameroon? In fact, we're also called Cameroon. Bakassi is part and parcel of southern Cameroons. And as long as that part remains part of southern Cameroon, historically, geographically, and the court judgment stands, the ownership of Bakassi and its mineral resources belong to Ambazonia the day we shall actualize our independence and administration. Cameroon will have no reason at all ever to attempt to come and own something in Bakassi more than 2,000 miles away from their capital, Yaoundé and Douala.
Now, Barrister
As far
T,
as,
that is the
as far as
day we
Nigeria is
shall
concerned,
actualize. That is,
the
yeah.
ownership of Bakassi is mute, is closed. That chapter, who owns Bakassi, is closed. Thank you.
Barrister T, you're talking about the day Cameroon will actualize its independence. That's what you're talking about. The day Cameroon will actualize its independence. There's an element about the fact that La République du Cameroon should not even speak when it comes to Bakassi unless they are claiming that we joined them. And this brings us again to the element of joining the people that are having their independence by joining. Barrister Fu, perhaps you want to come in there.
Yes, Paddy, thank you very much. Like my colleague said, the issue of Bakassi is no longer in existence. Bakassi belongs to the Cameroons, and that includes the southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. Bakassi belongs to Ambazonia in totality, and I will explain. If you look at the African Union Declaration or law, the boundaries of all African countries are their boundaries as of independence. Therefore, Bakassi does not belong to La République du Cameroun. It does not belong to Nigeria. That of Nigeria has been decided. Nigeria signed the Green Tree Treaty with Cameroon, and to actualize that Green Tree Treaty, the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations arrived Yaoundé with two maps: the map of La République du Cameroun and the map of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. That is to tell that neither you nor Nigeria has Bakassi. That is why we are bringing these two maps to show. Now that you are claiming that you have a union with the Southern Cameroons, well, we bring the two maps to show you that this is the crux of the matter. And Bear received those two maps. I don't know whether he understood why to two maps. If he was clever enough, he should have at least been able to interpret what I'm just saying. Bakassi belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia in its totality. Look, I don't want to believe anything coming from Nigeria at this time because they are in what you call political campaigns. So anything, they can say anything and do anything. Like I remember that I have listened to one of my senior colleagues I cannot remember the names, one Goodson or whatever. He said, and I quote, Bakassi has never belonged to Nigeria. So that issue of Nigeria is mute. The matter has been decided by the International Court in The Hague and was actualized by a Green Trade Treaty. So our problem now should be, if we actualize our independence, as my colleague has said, if Cameroon has nothing to say about Bakassi, Bakassi does not belong to Cameroon. It belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia in its totality. That is a big chunk of the Gulf of Guinea. And we know that the Gulf of Guinea almost in its totality belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. So all this noise coming from Nigeria, I'm still to see a legal document. I'm still to see them file any matter in court. It's politics. But I say that with caution, because Cameroon now is looking for every means to
create a distraction.
To create a distraction to own Bakassi or to be part of Bakassi or whatever. So we are ready now. We are ready to fight both legally and physically to ensure that Bakassi, our territory, right inside our territory, is not touched neither by Nigeria or by Cameroon. La Republic of Cameroon.
From your statements, gentlemen, you both agree on one thing, that this matter is very sensitive.
Yes.
And it is that sensitivity that and the utterances of certain politicians. We saw a certain politician of the North coming to educate Nigerians on a history he really didn't understand, perhaps because of his political interest. I think is one of the governors, an ex-governor, insinuating and inspiring Nigerians who are lazy enough to study that Bakassi belongs to them. That's a major problem, Barrister Tim. And do you think this should be one of the discussion of the president's press conference, educating the Nigerian public, now that we're trying to create some quasi partnership, protect our people that are vulnerable and guarded in the East? Because the Nigerian government or the Buhari government has not made any official statement. But we've seen people in the campaign trail making statements to insinuate that Bakassi is Nigerian. Barrister Tim, please.
I think Mr. Soha said everything. It is all politics. And this is where we should take from. Let us give the worst case scenario. We remember this agreement between Cho Ayaba and the Biafra, what do you call that man? Okay, let us suppose that tomorrow, by some magic, the state of Biafra emerges. Can they make a claim to Bakassi because we are their neighbors? They can never, because they were caught at the Hague when they decided that Bakassi is Cameroon. The future state of Biafra was part of Nigeria. They are bound by that judgment. So they cannot revisit it, no matter who is sitting in Abuja as a president, whether it's from the north, from the south, from the east, or from, cannot be revisited. But let us remember, you see, there are many things that a lot of us don't understand. We have, all of us sit here and know that there's a refinery in Limbe, an oil refinery. But probably we don't know that there's no oil well in Limbe. There's no oil well in Limbe. They say much of the oil comes from there, and there's no oil well in their town. All the oil being refined in Limbe comes from the Bakassi Peninsula. It is pumped there in the refinery. It is refined. So the issue of Bakassi now is not just what is happening. See, and as we've said, the day we shall actualize our independence. Right now, the oil that is refined in Limbe is piped to Douala, put in storage there. Consumers from just 40 kilometers away have to go and buy in Douala. What will happen tomorrow, next year, 2 years after we actually established our feet on the ground. That will cease to be their territory. The refinery that they are getting from there would not be their refinery anymore. The oil, as I said, is not coming from it now. It's coming from Bakassi. And so they cannot lay any claim to Bakassi. Neither can any future government of Nigeria, under whoever, successfully lay claim to Bakassi. They cannot. And may I just use this? You see, the issue in the court, the war the Nigerians fought with the Cameroon, was essentially over Bakassi. But the issues of judgment went beyond Bakassi. The court decided, because Nigeria claimed that Cameroon was trespassing into its own territories in the north. Which are the territories of Nigeria in the north? They are the former northern Cameroons. Because Nigeria never had any border with Nigeria, with Cameroon. What they call their territory today is the northern Cameroon that purportedly joined Nigeria. And so they complained at The Hague that Cameroon was trespassing into it. And so
Now,
The
how
Hague now
was
came out.
Cameroon, Barrister Tim, let me intercept you a little bit. I think it's paradoxical because Cameroon, Nigeria allow trespassing, indiscriminate border movement, especially with their soldiers when it has to do with some kind of interest. When it has to be pushing away the Amazonian Restoration Forces, Cameroon really doesn't, or Nigeria really doesn't care if the B defies their territorial boundaries. We've not seen the Buhari government, we've seen only people in the parliament actually protesting against acts of the bill, crossing the borders in purportedly looking for Amazonian Restoration Forces. Same thing in the north. We've seen the bill get into Maiduguri in search of Boko Haram. So when we talk about territorial boundaries and sovereignty, these two sovereign states have a strange way of respecting their boundaries.
What I was trying to
Tim,
say, I was trying to learn. I was trying to say that the court went further than just Bakassi. The court ordered a retracing of the boundary between Cameroon and Nigeria from Lake Chad right down to the Atlantic Ocean. And it has been done. The boundary between northern Cameroon and Cameroon that joined Nigeria has been retraced. I have pillars here to show that how pillars have been planted. So the territorial claim over there has been settled. But what do we have now as a problem in Bakassi, as you are talking about somebody saying that they didn't settle it now? When they came to Bakassi to retrace the boundaries as ordered by the court, they set up a mixed commission chaired by the representative of the United Nations to retrace the boundary from Lake Chad to the Atlantic Ocean. When they came to Bakassi, by the time they came to Bakassi, they had planted 324 pillars. And they could not agree on simple 3 villages. I'm sure those 3 villages must be very oil rich. They could not agree on it. That's why you find that thing I forwarded to you. We said that they are going back to the court for clarification. I don't know what clarification, but that's the only simple disagreement they have. So, whatever thing is happening in the north, I guess, my belief is that Boko Haram, even in the first place, is the inheritance of northern Cameroon to Nigeria. They are basically based on what used to be northern Cameroon. But that's a pinch of salt. But the good luck we have about the whole thing is everything that we don't like sometimes has a positive impact. I'd said that the whole English administered Cameroon from Lake Chad to the Atlantic Ocean was then luckily or unluckily divided into 2. There was something called North Cameroon. And they had 2 plebiscites the same day. They not opted to join Nigeria, so be it for them. We opted to be down here. So whatever is going on in Bakassi, which is Ambazonia, has nothing to concern Yaoundé. Again, the issue has been muted, has been settled as far as Nigeria is concerned. And by way of example, let me just give this illustration. Namibia is a country like ours. Namibia was a protectorate handed over to South Africa to administer. The South Africans assumed and claimed that Namibia was their territory. And because of that, they claim they went to Walvis Bay and be the best seaport in Southern Africa. When it dawned on them that the court, the ICJ at The Hague ruled that Namibia is not your territory, you have to go away. The South Africans sought to claim Walvis Bay. Say, but we'll be this this port here. It shall belong to us. They did not succeed. So again, Bakassi, whatever it is found there, belongs to us. The Sonorai found in Limbe, no matter how many millions the Republic has pumped into it, is our property at the appropriate time when we actualize. We have still insisted.
Do you really think, Barrister Fru?
Yes.
Barrister Fru, do you think that Cameroon might have the moral authority to claim anything from Bakassi after these years? We're going to get into the Nigerian settlers in Bakassi and how the Green Tree arrangements affect them, how international law protects them, because they are a people protected by international law. We're also going to see how Nigeria is using political instruments to use them to gain ascendance on that land. But first of all, can Cameroon at any given point make any claims as per any investment they have done in Bakassi? I'm talking about La République du Cameroon.
Before I answer, let me make a small fact clarification.
Go right ahead, please.
My colleague should know that, but Sonara is no longer operational. Sonara was destroyed. At least the production unit was destroyed. What is happening is now is that Cameroon imports refined petroleum from Nigeria. They bring it to where Sonora is in the tankers and pump it into the Sonora tankers that takes it to Douala. So Sonora is no longer producing. It's unimportant, but I needed to make that clarification. To answer your question, Paddy, Cameroon has no moral or legal duty to say anything about Bakassi. Because, like I said before, according to the African Union, the OAU and the African Union now, the boundaries of each country are as of independence. And like my colleague said, there has never been a boundary between La Republique and Nigeria. No. La Republique, Nigeria had a boundary with the southern Cameroons, with the Cameroons, right from the north, right down to the southern Cameroons. The disagreement that my colleague just mentioned were cured by the Green Tree Treaty. Because the Green Tree Treaty, the opening clause, Bakassi belongs to the Cameroons. Nigeria went further because Nigeria was signing that treaty knowing that Bakassi was not Nigeria, it was not Nigerian, it was not Cameroon. It belonged to the Southern Cameroons, and that the Southern Cameroons had not benefited.
Yeah, I was about intercepting you, Barrister Fru, because when you talk about the Cameroons, it encapsulates French Cameroon. But now you have to be specific.
Yeah. It includes the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia, which Cameroon is claiming illegally because there was no joining. And that debate is a different debate. I just want to bring to focus where we are, the Green Tree Treaty. In that Green Tree Treaty, the charging clause, Bakassi belongs to the Cameroons, like it was decided at The Hague. Now, Nigeria, knowing that Bakassi does not belong to Cameroon, does not belong to them, Nigeria added a clause because they knew that Cameroon was getting oil from part of Bakassi, and the southern Cameroons that actually owned Bakassi had not benefited from that oil. So what did Nigeria do? They said in that treaty they must add that there must be a trans-African highway from Nigeria running through Cameroon. I mean, running through Nigeria to the boundary in a Cock, right to the southern Cameroon, both the northern zone and the southern zone. That's what they call the Trans-African trunk. And they ask that Cameroon must build the road. They will build their part that is in Nigeria. Cameroon will complete their part that is in Cameroon, the Cameroons. That part that they were talking about is in the southern Cameroon. That is from Ekok, right to Kumba, right to Bamenda, and beyond, and connecting back to the north. That is what the Nigeria had in mind in that Green Tree Treaty when they signed that treaty. And to go further, Nigeria, by that declaration, wanted the southern Cameroon to have some benefit. That is why they asked for that Trans-African highway, which Cameroon today has not built. There has been violations of that Green Tree Treaty by La République du Cameroon, which may or may not concern us. First, they did not build that highway as was stipulated by Nigeria. Second, the Nigerian in the Green Tree Treaty wanted to protect the population of Bakassi, which was about 90% or 80% Nigerian. And they said, oh, there should be no taxation on their population. There should be no this and that on this and that and that. And Cameroon stupidly signed it. But let me tell you something. Your citizens cannot settle on a territory that does not belong to them. And you define what taxes or without taxes that will be paid by that population. So if Nigeria is so minded about the violation of the Green Tree Treaty, it should take its population out of Bakassi if they so want.
Because it's been a long time, and unless they're having an interest to indirectly exploit a land that is not theirs, they could have taken close to 2 decades to rehabilitate and or resettle those who are Nigerians.
Yes. So
these guys can claim nationality in where they are settled. They have a right by international law.
No, if they decide that they want to claim no. I didn't listen to me. If they decide that they want to claim nationality, they will claim nationality of Ambazonia.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that Bakassi in its entirety belongs to the southern Cameroon Ambazonia, far away from La République du Cameroon, far away from Nigeria. So Nigeria knew from the beginning that the Bakassi Peninsula belongs to the southern Cameroon Ambazonia. And they saw and they were incapacitated by the court in the Hague that they don't have anything to do with Bakassi. Therefore, they were indirectly telling Cameroon by the Green Tree Treaty that part of that country that you claim that is yours may not be yours after all. The people that you took it from them have not benefited, so you have to build a highway for them.
It's important, fellow Ambazonians, for those who are watching. It's important for all those who are watching, all those who are watching this show to know that the road that has been built by the World Bank from Bamenda to Ekok into Nigeria is officially known as the Enugu Highway.
Yes.
The naming of that road should tell you what we are. Cameroon will never educate their nation, their people.
And the origin of that road is from the Green Tree Treaty.
Yes.
It extends right to Kumba. And extends right to the northern zone. If Cameroon respected the treaty, they would have built that thing right to connect to the northern part of Nigeria, who was the former northern Cameroon.
And the road is to target the Enugu International Airport. Because it leads from Bamenda, from Kumba, Boya, into the Enugu International Airport. And this brings us
Exactly.
into some aspect of the discussion which has to do with the historicity and the legality. It is clear that La République du Cameroon has never shared a border in that area with Nigeria. So they do not even have any moral authority to get into any serious discussion. But I always like to take the devil's advocate when we're having such education and having to educate our public. What if Nigeria, that we are relying on to some extent, they have betrayed us by kidnapping our leaders and forcing them into Cameroon? What if Nigeria has strong interest? Or what if Nigeria escalates the economic interest they have in Bakassi? We already seen politicians making statements in this regard. Barrister Tim, please.
This is what we must understand. See, the Green Tree Agreement that we've cited so many times, put in paragraph 7 or 8, I think, said that nothing in this agreement is intended to change the terms of the judgment of the court. So whatever thing the court said, the whole agreement was meant to facilitate the enforcement of that decision of the court. It was not meant to change anything. And what did the Green Tree Agreement say? Among other things, the Cameroon government was supposed to go there. Don't forget about Enugu, Kumba, whatever road. The Republic government was supposed to go and develop the area. But before I get there, remember that all the people who live in Bakassi, they use the Naira. They don't even use the CFA franc. They are Nigerians in terms of everything. They use the Naira there. And so the Green Trade Agreement stipulated that Cameroon will go and develop the place. They will dig roads there. They will make schools there. It is written in black and white. Can they do it? Yes. Why have they not done it to this point? They have not done it simply because to go and develop Bakassi, you have to dig a road from Kumba to Kondo Titi to Ndian, build highways across the ocean. That would have developed everybody who lives on that stretch of the road. And since that is in southern Cameroon, Yaoundé is not prepared to invest any money that will develop the area. Today we hear them where they're digging a road from Kumba to Kondo Titi, 60-kilometer road. So it is not because they don't know it. Now, let us go again. In Cameroon, there's something called land tax. We've said that all the oil that comes and is refined in Limbe comes from Bakassi, comes from Dian. Where are they paying the taxes? How much has Sonara paid its taxes to Ndian? Talk less of to Victoria. No. The exploration taxes that are gotten from the oil exploitation in Bakassi are paid in Douala. So it's not by mistake. No. It's clearly designed to underdevelop us. Again, looking at it again, I think I've forwarded that document to you. What they were trying to go back to the Hague for clarification. There was something that featured in that statement I sent to you. They also disagree because they were trying to, Nigeria and Cameroon have been trying to carry out joint oil exploration ventures in Bakassi. They are agreed in principle. We have joint gas exploration here in Bakassi. But you could not agree. Even as of today, as of August, they are not agreed on how to do it. Because even such a joint exploration, in principle, will not even benefit Yaoundé because Bakassi is nearest to Nigeria. And again, as Mr. So says, the Green Tree Agreement was not supposed to last forever. They gave a lot of time within this period to do this because Nigeria's claim to Bakassi was based on the people who live there. Go and develop the people, build schools there. But suppose
Yeah.
Yaoundé doesn't do it, it doesn't undo the judgment of the Hague. Nigerians, like all one else, like you have just said, they have the right to move away to Nigeria. I know, I saw Nigerians in Kumba in the 60s, 50s. When we voted to join East Cameroon, they simply moved back to their Nigeria. They are free to move. No agreement will force them to stay in the place they don't want. So they can go away if they think that the Green Tree is not being respected. and Cameroon and Bakassi does not belong to them, they can simply move their businesses to wherever they want in their country. And so
Uh,
that
but
is
as
it.
the team, this is where you wonder the international community. You want to say international the hypocrisy, because during this war, documents were brought to the table. The legality of the land, the true owners were reviewed. But it would appear that nothing was mentioned at that time. We were made to think it's a victory of President Biya. You see, the United Nations was involved in this peace process between La République du Cameroon and Nigeria. The question of the Southern Cameroon could have been brought up at that time to say, hey guys, you both are fighting on a land that really doesn't belong to any of you. And nobody seemed to have said anything. Vice Fru, please.
Yes. If you go to the United Nations General Secretariat, you will find out that the southern Cameroon has been decolonized, which is not true. Which is not true. The process was never completed. If you I look at Resolution 1608, paragraph 5, was never respected. In fact, Cameroon did not implement that resolution. Number two, United Nations, knowing that something will happen in the future, the General Assembly sent their president to Cameroon with 2 maps. And the question that we should be asking ourselves, why the 2 maps if Cameroon was one and Bakassi is part of Cameroon? Why the 2 maps? It was to indicate to Cameroon that, listen, while you might have won this case and you have signed a treaty, just know that there is a place called the Southern Cameroons, and this is their map. And today, we are fighting a war to take back our sovereignty, not our independence because we had it. To take back our sovereignty, that is to actualize our independence. And La République du Cameroon, after this war, after it is settled, it will be far away from Bakassi, just like Nigeria has already been put off and far away by the ICJ. Bakassi, to conclude, Bakassi belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Amazonia in its entirety. I want to talk about the nefarious attitude of Great Britain. Could you imagine that even during this war, Great Britain, its prominent oil company, went and signed an agreement with La République du Cameroon to do what? Exploit oil and gas in the southern Cameroon. Britain, if that is not armed robbery, what it is? Knowing that that part of the country does not belong to La République du Cameroon, knowing that they did not complete what Resolution 1608 asked them to do, knowing that we are at war to actualize our independence, they went ahead and signed an agreement with La République du Cameroon to exploit oil and gas in our territory. Up to today, Britain is burying its head in the sand and is saying nothing because of its nefarious attitude towards the southern Cameroons, even up to as I speak. So look, the international community has been and some kind of international conspiracy, but it's not going to bear fruit because the boundaries are clear. The world is aware that the Gulf of Guinea, which includes Bakassi, belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Amazonia.
Okay, Barrister team, we getting back to this discussion. It's political, like you said. But like you've said, politicians are insinuating ownership of the land from Nigeria. And we have heard that there is a clarification. They are going back to court to make a clarification. Again,
I thought,
whichever court that is taking the wrong parties to talk on a piece of plot that does not belong to them. That is the worry, Barrister Chief.
Let us understand one thing. When this matter was decided in 2002, it didn't start in 2002. It started years back. It takes years to settle a matter at the ICJ. When the matter took off there, before the final judgment came out, there were other interpreters. Equatorial Guinea, for example, sought to join, and they were allowed to join the case because they claimed that distributing the Delta region will affect them as well. They were allowed to join. We, Ambazonians, we sought to join the case as interpreters, as being interested in the matter. But we did not succeed. Why? Because the ICJ was established to settle matters between countries who were considered not a country as such. So we could not join the proceedings at The Hague. But nonetheless, they came out with a judgment. I'm trying to answer a question why you say the international community did not do anything. When they were talking, they didn't mention our names. Now, the case that came out of The Hague, the judgment and the case that was pending there, the two parties in the case were the Republic of Cameroon and Nigeria were not parties to it. So if they are giving any ruling there that we did not like, at the appropriate time, we are free to challenge it successfully. Will not be barred by the judgment entered between Nigeria and Cameroon, because we were not party to it. For it to bind us, we must be party to the case. The subject matter must be the same. Since we're not party to that case, we can always challenge what we don't like there. But since there are things that we like there, for example, the ruling that Bakassi is not Nigeria, we're not going to go back to that. But again, they are trying to do some economic interest there, which is what concerns us. Did the court go down to deal with the economic investments in Bakassi? No, they didn't deal with that. They decided the land border, maritime boundary, that's all. In the other agreements that they entered after that, if they don't please us, we will challenge them at the appropriate time. And so that's why when you go to interpret a judgment, interpret it between the parties. We are not a party to the case at The Hague. I've explained, we tried to join, we did not succeed. So the judgment that comes out of that case binds the parties, because there's no appeal pending. It binds Nigeria on one hand, and it binds Cameroon on the other hand. If we have an interest, like we know we have, and there's anything in that judgment that we do not like, we are free to go, if we become a country, we're free to go back to The Hague and say, look, sue whoever is offending us there. It is Nigeria, or it is Cameroon, or someone else flying by plane. And so
That's the big worry, Barrister Tim. That's the big worry, that you have a court that supposedly should be an international court receiving the wrong persons to debate on a land that is not theirs. Don't you think?
No. I've explained to you, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, was established in 1945, in the 1945 UN Charter, to deal with matters between member states, countries. And so they dealt with the parties that came before them. We tried to challenge that the land did not belong to either to Nigeria or to Cameroon. We did not succeed. I wonder whether we couldn't have succeeded, because they were, as I said, they dealt with the boundaries from Lake Chad to the Atlantic Ocean. Our brothers in the northern Cameroon who are purportedly joined Nigeria have not been protesting. It became an integral part of Nigeria. We don't see any protests coming from there. We are protesting. When we successfully establish ourselves on the ground, there should be legal issues if they are still there. If, for example, Yamada refuses to go away. If, for example, by that time, Nigeria started pumping oil out of Bakassi, we will have the right, the legal right, to challenge them in the appropriate before the appropriate court. So we have nothing to regret at this point, as far as that judgment is concerned. The subject matter is the same. Bakassi, as far as we're concerned, it has been settled. Bakassi is Cameroon. Maybe if you look at that judgment, the way they spell Cameroon in that judgment, they say Cameroons, which is the way we have been spelling Cameroon. So you can go to fine print and say, well, maybe they were talking about British Southern Cameroon, because the judgment says Bakassi is Cameroons. With 002 or with 002 N S. So it is possible to interpret that our interest was at stake, but for now, that's not where we are. Thank you. Over to you, Paddy.
Are you frozen? Yes.
No, that's fine. He is not frozen. Barrister Fru, you wanted to react.
Yes,
Since
I
I
wanted to
wanted
also
him
say,
to
I
finish.
wanted to say that. I
Yeah,
wanted
go
to say
ahead.
that
Yeah.
at the negotiating table, all these matters with Cameroon will be sorted at the negotiating table, and Cameroon will have no right, morally or legally, to do anything on the soil that belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia. That will form a major part of the negotiations of terms of separation. Our problem now would come if Nigeria, in complicity with Cameroon, decides to get back into Bakassi and start drilling oil. That's when the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia will have the legal right to go to The Hague and sue Nigeria. But for now, we don't have any quarrel with Nigeria. We have a quarrel right now, and we are fighting against Cameroon. Nigerian population in Bakassi will be treated like any other population that is living in a foreign land by the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia. But Bakassi cannot determine. I mean, Nigeria cannot tell the Southern Cameroons how to treat the population that migrated from Nigeria into our territory, which is Bakassi. It will be
Now,
a matter of
there is a cliche here. There is
law.
a trick here. This is the point. This population of Nigeria in Bakassi supersedes the Southern Cameroonian population. This
It doesn't matter.
population in Bakassi, Nigeria claims to have invested in this place. As you're talking, that's what I want you to consider.
No. Listen, sir. Listen to me very carefully. It is not because your population has migrated into our territory, crossing the boundary, that you think that you have invested in that area. You cannot come to my land and invest on it and then expect me to compensate you. We are talking about human beings. They will be treated like any other human being living in the Southern Cameroons. They will have to pay taxes on their activities in the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia. If they don't want to do that, Nigeria is free to relocate its population back into its territory. And that is where, if Nigeria insists on doing anything on our territory based on that, we'll go to The Hague and sort it out. But for now, Bakassi belongs to the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia. And we will decide that after this war, when we'll be on that table, we will tell Cameroon, respect the boundary. You have boundaries as of independence. And they had boundaries with us. They never had any boundaries with Nigeria. Okay? That's the point I'm making. Paddy, are you muted?
No, I'm not muted.
Yeah.
Now, diplomacy, international relations, and relations between nations is quite a complex thing. At this time, we're seeking to make friends. If Nigeria feels that in their bargain with La République du Cameroon and their interest in Bakassi will be jeopardized if Amazonia actually gains sovereignty, do you think, or perhaps, don't you think that could be one of the reasons why Nigeria has been partnering with Cameroon in many different ways that we already know? Why is Sisiko in prison? Has been partnering
Okay.
with La République du Cameroon because they feel like their interest is much more protected by the French Cameroon than the British Southern Cameroons. Don't you think so? When we're talking about diplomacy and international relations, Barrister Tim.
Now, before you go there, I think in my opening statement, I said something. If there was a war there, and there was, they were not fighting over the 120,000 people or 10,000, whatever number of people who live there. They are not fighting in that. The interest in Bakassi is not the physical person sitting there. The physical person sitting there is just a symbol. Right now, let me say again, if there are 1,000 people living in Bakassi, 900 of them are Nigerians. Is Cameroon getting anything economically from those 900 Nigerians? Zero. All the activities they carry economically are in Nigeria. In the old Western Southern Cameroons, people used to pay poll tax. They went to Bakassi and counted if there are 20 people there, everybody £1, they had 20 pounds. Poll tax has since been abolished. So what does Yaoundé benefit from the individuals staying in Bakassi? Almost zero. They don't get anything from them. Because in Cameroon, you pay taxes on business. Does Cameroon have any business there? No. They have nothing in Bakassi as business. The only thing they're interested in Bakassi is the oil, is the subsoil. So when you see Nigeria come and say we want to develop Bakassi because we own it, it is not because they like the people sitting there. It's the oil. If they pumped out 100 barrels of oil, how much does it cost to come and plant a road there and put water there? Almost nothing. So it's not so much because they love those people. No, it's not the person who is there. It is the economic interest at stake. And so diplomatically, Nigeria knows what they will get out of Bakassi, especially now, as I've just said, that they are trying to do a joint venture. When they go into joint ventures, if they ever did that, who is going to benefit most? They will put these their pipes underground. As Mr. Ansora said, we don't even refine oil in Limbe. We go and buy it from somewhere else. Nigeria has refineries around their own country. They will pump other oil and refine it in Nigeria, and they make money out of it. A lot of money. Cameroon will get nothing. Because they are, as of now, they are still a fifth, not even a third world country. No, they are nothing. So it's not the population sitting there. It's the economic interest on the ground. If they entered into an agreement with a British firm to come and exploit gas there, they don't come and just exploit. They give conditions. You will build a road. You put schools here. And Mr. Nassau knows what they call a school in Nigeria and a school in Cameroon. Our schools in Cameroon are not even toilets in Nigeria. So if in Cameroon were to say, well, be our school, they will go and they will take the money and eat and build some thatch houses there and call it a school. So again, our interest supersedes. At the end of the day, the best we'll get out of Bakassi when we get ourselves reinstated there is the development we'll carry there, is the economic interest we'll try to exploit. If we have to dig a highway there, if we have to build flyovers, we'll do it because in return, we'll get the money that we've invested there. Cameroon does not get any money out of their own investments because of the triple corruption that they have, especially in West Cameroon. They will not do it because that will tend to develop us. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Add before I say I
Yes,
give you
I
the
want to
question. Just add.
we're talking about diplomacy and international relations.
Yes.
Nigeria right now, if it doesn't take its hands away from Bakassi, it will be hurting its own interest in diplomacy and international relations. Let me explain. The African countries now are fighting and wanting some African country to become a permanent member of the Security Council. And they are looking at Nigeria and South Africa. And Nigeria stands very much to benefit because of its large population, because of its large economic contribution in the world economy. Nigeria stands to benefit to become the permanent member of the Security Council. But if Nigeria decides to violate an international judgment issued by the ICJ, that would be a dark spot, and Nigeria will never be able to be a permanent member of the Security Council.
Barrister Fro, you seem so confident about the same international community. No, Barrister Fro, please. I just want to add before you continue. You seem so confident about this international community, the same international community that is putting a blind eye in the face of a genocide ongoing, the same international community that had the SecGen of the security of the United Nations standing to bring a peace accord between two parties who are not true owners of the land.
No,
Don't you
yes,
think the international community also has an interest that Nigeria can protect, and they protect Nigeria as Nigeria protects?
I am not giving any credence to the international conspiracy. All I'm saying is a violation of a judgment of an international court in The Hague sends a very bad message to the world about Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they are conscious of that. That's why you see them talking this politics in the campaign, and so it will end up with nothing. I don't see Nigeria violating that judgment that was issued by the ICJ. If they do, I'm not also giving confidence to the international community, but I'm saying every country in the world that I know will not tolerate any country violating a judgment that has become final by the International Court at The Hague. That's what I'm saying. So Nigeria is advised to stay off Bakassi and respect not only the international judgment that was issued at The Hague, but also the Green Treaty that was signed by a Nigerian president, Olusegun Obasanjo, on behalf of the nation of Nigeria.
Now, Barrister Tim wants to react to that.
I want to say that I said this before we were discussing this thing. The Hague judgment dealt with the maritime borders at Bakassi.
Exactly.
That's all what they dealt with. And as of August last year, when they had their 24th session of reassessment, the two parties, Nigeria and Cameroon, still stand by the Hague judgment. Nobody is challenging that judgment. So the judgment still binds them. Strictly speaking, that just what we're discussing, that Bakassi is Cameroon. Interpreting where the boundary pass through behind this tree or down here is a different story. They still stand by that judgment. So they're not challenging the judgment. Nigeria has not indicated that they come back. Let us remember, why did they go to The Hague? Who went to court? Cameroon is the one who sued Nigeria in The Hague. Why? Because Nigerian forces had occupied Bakassi. The few gendarmes who were going by boat could not even dislodge them. But after the judgment of The Hague, Nigeria withdrew all its troops. They are not today in Bakassi. They are not there. They have withdrawn. The Green Tree agreement was to make them go. And they went. They don't have any forces of Nigeria in Bakassi right now. So they are not challenging the validity of the Hague agreement. They may have some differences. Let the pillar stop here. Let the pillar pass there. But the entire judgment still stands, which dealt with the maritime border between Nigeria and Cameroon in the Bakassi area. Again, I've said, once they said it belongs to Cameroon, as far as the maritime boundary is concerned, it's muted issue. Nigeria is not arguing that. They are not disputing that Bakassi is Cameroon. They may say that, well, Cameroon was supposed to go and be a railway here. They didn't build a school here. That is not part of the judgment. It was the consensus to make them go away, feeling satisfied that their people are not being badly treated.
I'm live on
As
TV. Let's talk later.
okay, as Mr. Saw said, if the government promised to build them a school, to build them a hospital, and they have not built, simply go back to where you have better health. Because the Green Treaty Agreement did not provide that if you don't build a hospital, we'll come and catch you or we'll do this. There's no fine. Read the agreement, there's no fine there that if you don't dig the road. The United Nations will do this to you now. So if it's just the Green Tree, which are saying that is not right, that the Cameroon has not performed its part, fine. Again, I've said the Green Tree was not supposed to last forever. It was supposed to be for about 6 years. Do this for this interim period to calm the population of people who are living there, make them at least have a hospital, let them have this health center. And Cameroon had to agree because they were in the weaker position. They could not defeat Yaoundé militarily. But as soon as Lagos military, but as soon as Abuja pulled their troops away, Cameroon can then say that we're withdrawing the Nigerians out of Bakassi. That's all what it is about. Again, we have a lot of time in our hands. Anything that Cameroon enter into, whether it is over Bakassi or some other international organization, that will feel dissatisfied. As soon as we actualize our position, we are free to sue them in any court of relevant competence. We are free to do that. Nothing prevents us from doing it. Again, as I said, we are not the Biafrans. The Biafrans will not come to revisit that matter if they had an independent Biafra tomorrow. Because when
Now Barrister Team, there are many factions of the Biafra. And that's what Cameroon, La République du Cameroon, is attempting to do with Ambazonia by trying to influence factions and to water down factions calling themselves Ambazonians and doing different things and saying and believing in different things. Even the Namdi Kanu, who is calling himself the IPOP indigenous people of Ambazonia or of Biafra, is not supported by Ashari, who is supporting the Muslim regime of Buhari. Now you have another faction of the Biafrans who are also claiming the Bakassi. Why am I saying all of this? This rich Gulf of Guinea that has its nucleus in the Bakassi Peninsula that supposedly is a black gold owned by the Southern Cameroons could be a future place for lives to be lost because of power mongers looking for money to sustain their power in the economic space of the world. Please.
Now, I brought that example to illustrate something. Let Nigeria break up into different. Let Nigeria break up into different countries. Niger Delta, IPOP. Let them have 5 different countries emerging out of Nigeria with interest in the Niger Delta area, with interest in Bakassi. What I was trying to explain is that they are bound by it because at the time of the Hague in 2002, the Niger Delta, Ebola, Biafra, whatever, they constituted part of Nigeria. That lost the case at the Hague. So that judgment binds them entirely. Yeah. Whether they become 10 different countries or 5 different countries, whatever, the judgment binds them because they were part of the Hague. It's not the same thing for us. So I just want to illustrate that the judgment remains binding on Nigerian government today, on the Biafran government tomorrow, on the Niger Delta government next 10 years. It remains binding as long as the constituted part of Nigeria that suit the case that went to the Hague and lost. It binds them. That's the thing I was trying to illustrate.
Okay, thank you. As you can see on the screen, okay, react to it.
Even though it binds them, anybody looking at the oil-rich Bakassi and has more guns than the Southern Cameroons may attempt to invade. And that is why where we have to be very careful. As soon as we take over, we should make sure that we militarize Bakassi in such a way that no trigger-happy neighbor who is watching the riches from afar can jump into our territory. When I say militarized, I don't mean the type of militarized that the francophones utilize to cram down the population. I mean total blockage of our territory by our armed forces to make sure that there is no encroachment from any party. That's what I'm saying.
You see, world powers are colonizing, claiming land and economic property anywhere in the world. Russia is in Kremlin and Donbass. The America in the Caribbeans has gotten some of the islands in the Caribbeans. Britain is you had one of the Caribbean islands last year or 2 years ago actually having a referendum to kick away Britain. Now we have two powers in Africa that could want to get into Amazonia even after our independence, also to colonize and gain the Bakassi Rich Peninsula. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Amazonians, as you can see, we finally have Barrister Ghana here to talk to us and get into the intricacies, get into the historicity of this peninsula, the future we should expect, and what we want. Thank you for coming, Barrister Ghana. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, Comrade Paddy, thanks for the great job that you've been doing. Greetings to my senior colleagues, Barrister Mbeseha and Barrister John Fru. And they've been doing a marvelous job. I think they've explained it in great detail that Bakassi belongs to the Southern Cameroons. The geography of it says that, the history of it says that. I think the international organs of justice have looked at that, and it ended up in the Green Tree Accord, where it was ruled as belonging to Cameroon, implicitly belonging to the Southern Cameroons. That is going to be part of the settlement when we finally get French Cameroon to pull out of our territory. The settlement on Bakassi is not going to be any different from the settlement on the Azul Strait. You know, they fought over it, irrespective of who thinks they have bigger guns. They fought over it, and it finally ended up with going through the International Court of Justice, where they looked at the map of Libya and Chad, the history between Italy and France, the deals that were signed, which they've already looked at all of that prior to the Green Tree Accord being signed. So there is absolutely and unambiguously no doubt that the Bakassi Peninsula belongs to the British Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonia. Thank you.
You see, Barrister Ghana, I want to stay with you. I'm asking these two lawyers to give us some time. You want to make a reaction? I'd like to stay with Barrister Ghana for some time because there are some questions I really want him to answer them. But it would appear Barrister Tim wants to briefly react.
Yeah, I just want to put in something. See, the issue of Bakassi will never be an issue. If in 1961, after we purportedly had independence, they had gone and developed that place, Bakassi would never have been an issue. It is because of the abandonment
So
of
you're
the
saying
area.
it was abandoned?
Yes, it was abandoned by the Yaoundé regime and implicitly taken. I told you that even in Bakassi, 95% of them do business only with Nigeria. Had we gone and developed the place, Bakassi would never have been an issue. And
Maybe
so,
God never ever wanted them to develop it so that
no, this is what
they
I'm trying to
wouldn't
say. Let me
have
land on this
entitlement
point.
over it.
See, even right now that we are speaking, we have mineral-rich areas that cross frontiers between East Cameroon and Ambazonia. And the future government of Ambazonia must take this development of these frontier areas seriously.
Correct.
Otherwise, we'll lose many things. My own area where I come from, there's a rich deposit of bauxite between Chang and Ibielem. But up to this point that you are talking, There's no road even in Libelem. The few footpaths that come end up at Cham. Liberian people buy gari, they buy beer, they buy iron rods from Cham. So if they were to be say, well, this is where we belong because this is where we survive. What will you do? So the future government of Ambazonia must take the development of these frontal mineral-rich areas seriously. There will never have been Bakassi had we gone to develop Bakassi from 1961. Had we even gone to develop Bakassi from 1975 when they started exploiting oil from there? It would have dug the roads, the thing would never have come into issue. So that's the point I wanted to make.
Correct,
Again, like
correct.
I
And
said,
and
like
and
people always say, this is a God ordained
Paddy,
struggle. I think it's good that Cameroon didn't do it. Yes, Barrister Ghana, please.
yeah, just because you have bigger guns and you think you can go claim a territory does not mean you're going to successfully do it. Uh, International law right now is so established. Now, in property law, person to person, company to company, individual to individual, there's something called ECO, and an ECO in relation to what we call adverse possession in law. An adverse possession in law, which is something that emanated from English common law, says if I take your property and I hold it for 20 years in a hostile, open manner, and it is continuous, and I'm not challenged for it, I just have to go to court and perfect title. It becomes mine. There are a lot of people who've tried to claim property in Cameroon through that principle of ECO. And ECO just stands for exclusive, hostile, open, and I don't know what I've forgotten what the other. But ECO just defines the element
Barrister
of.
Ghana, maybe you want to bring your camera a little bit down, your so that we can see you fully on the screen better. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
This is so beautiful now. Thank you.
All right, good. So that principle applies in property law when it comes to individuals to individuals. But that principle of adverse possession does not apply in international law. So irrespective of their thought of us having abandoned that area, which we haven't, Ambazonia will never abandon that area. It's not going to fly in international law. So whenever you have resources in an area, you have predators. We saw it between Kuwait and Iraq, where they were all fighting about the oil fields north of Kuwait. We saw it between Iran and Iraq, where they were fighting over the Shatt al-Arab waterways. But in this case, in the southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonia, the maps are pretty clear. The legality is pretty clear. The history of it is pretty clear. And the right of the southern Cameroons to Bakassi is what we call in law indefeasible. Indefeasible, which means it cannot be challenged. And if it is challenged, it shall not prevail. So thank you.
Barrister Ghana, I'm still staying with you. One of our elated viewers I'm following on social media, this individual says, this argument disregards that Nigeria is a British construct. The land territory referred to as Bakassi is indigenously, the word indigenously is what caught my attention because I wonder if this individual understands the word indigenous and indigenous people. He says indigenously inhabited, I'm sure he said inhabited by the Oron people who speak the Cross River language and the descent from the Ibiobio clans. Bakassi does not belong to Ambazonia or Southern Cameroons or La République du Cameroon. Ambazonia has which authority to assert the Oron will be assimilated into their state. The basis of a British
Dead on arrival.
construct. So now it has to do with law, with historicity and legality. And I want you to talk. We're going to expand this. There's a lot of questions he puts there, it would appear he is a Nigerian probably trying to insinuate an argument. And I like his argument because I have you on this panel. So, Barrister Ghana, you've heard him. And this is history talking. Talk to us.
There's something, I think it was Lord Wilberforce in the Crimean War that referred to something as a piece of sublime mysticism, which translates into a loud sounding nothing. That claim that individual is making is truly what we call in law a loud sounding nothing. That is the same claim that Russia is making on the Donbass area and the Donetsk area and on Crimea. They used to be part of us. Our history goes back 500 years. The Tsar used to rule over that area. Piece of sublime mysticism. That is the same argument that Gaddafi made regarding the Azov Strip. Gaddafi said, just like him saying that the Oron people are somehow a straight line of cultural continuity between them and the Bakassi people. So Bakassi belongs to Nigeria. Gaddafi used that same argument to say the Arab tribes of southern Libya were the same as the people who were living in the Azov Strip. So it was a contiguous Libyan territory, and so it belonged to Libya. The International Court said, piece of sublime mysticism, loud sounding nothing. That individual can still make the claim, that the Efik people in Manfe are the same as the Efik people in Nigeria, and they speak the same language, they trade together, they just go across that boundary, and so they can make that claim that Manu belongs to Nigeria. Piece of sublime mysticism, loud sounding nothing. Article 4B of the African Union says the borders of nations in Africa is as they were at independence. And so they cannot circumvent that solid legal principle that has pillars in African and AU statutes. They cannot circumvent the Libyan example. They cannot circumvent the Ukrainian example. And so that argument goes as chatter to please some activists in Nigeria who might think that Bakassi belongs to them. But when it comes to legality, it is a loud sounding nothing, or as Lord Wilberforce would call it, a piece of sublime mysticism. Thank you.
You see this direction of argument. We have, before you came on this panel, we've brought to limelight how politicians are taking advantage of a vulnerable population that is not willing to learn to also make such claims. And I like the responses you've given. But start through, you want to react to something?
Yes, I want to just add that if the writer, the person who has sent you that message, if he's so minded, he should ask his government to withdraw their Aaron people from the territory of the Southern Cameroons and Bazonia back into Nigeria. That is what I said from the beginning of this debate. Listen, indigenously is a new word in international law that I have not heard but from this guy. You cannot take your indigenous people into some other person's territory in international law and claim ownership of it.
And invade another indigenous people's space.
Yes, and meet other indigenous people who are the people of Indian, and you take their territory and you populate it with your own people, and now you are claiming that indigenously that Bakassi belongs to you.
The people invaded the place due to natural cause, due to its fertility, and maybe they were mostly fishermen.
Wait, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish first. Like you have in the Southern Cameroons, there are people who move. There are Nigerians who are farming on fertile land in the southern Cameroons,
In
right
Kumba.
inside the
Nigerians
southern
are
Cameroon.
farming in Umojo, in a cup.
Yeah, in Yumajok, in other parts of the southern Cameroon, would they, and they're all Igbos, will they come and then, like he's claiming about his own people, will they come and claim that part of the southern Cameroon as theirs? Dead on arrival.
Correct. And when I was in Cameroon in 2015, even my own land in Mogambo was being prospected by Nigerians because they want to buy lands on the Trans-African Highway to be able to build their warehouses as they transport goods between West Africa through Cameroon to Central and Southern Africa. Would they mean
The
they can in
Momo
future
people, the Momo people have invaded Kendem land. Like we speak Bayang land. The Momo people have, in fact, the Momo have aggressively come into Manu. And then the Manu man is getting married to a lot of Momo because of the farm. I'm just bringing some humor so we can laugh.
Paddy, let me give you one other example. Before we jump from this topic, let me give you one example. There are some pieces of land in Europe that cause wars between the Europeans, and they finally ditched this whole idea of indigenous people. Let me give you an example. Alsace-Lorraine of France is indigenous of the German population, but it's part of France. And the settlement of the First World War and the Second World War concluded that it was part of France and it's going to remain part of France. Switzerland has people indigenous of different parts of Europe. People from Belgium, people from Germany, people from France, people from Holland, and etc., etc. Does this mean that all of these countries are going to come claim parts of Switzerland to be theirs? So let that individual remember that you can put wings on an elephant, but it doesn't mean that the elephant will fly. Dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival indeed. Barrister Tim.
I was just trying to clarify a few things. You see, sometimes when we say Article 4 of the Constitution, people don't understand. That's the African Charter. We just said Article 4 only. And before they adopted it in 1964, this debate of cross-country tribes was hotly debated. As Mr. Ghana just said, the Ejahams are in Calabar. The Ejahams are in Manfe, which is part of Amazonia. Nigeria has never sought to claim that the Ejahams in Manu are part of Nigeria because the larger bulk is found in Calabar. They agreed that if they ever raise those issues of people living across different boundaries, it was going to take them into much trouble. And so they said wherever your boundaries were, in fact, the African countries as they are, the boundaries were not defined by Africans. They were defined by the colonial masters, and they stay where they are. But why are we going right to Nigeria? What would we say, for example, tomorrow we will actualize independence? The people in Santa and the people in Metazam are speaking the same language. Will the Santa people suddenly become citizens of the Republic of Cameroon? No. I've just told you here a few minutes ago, we from the BLM, we speak the same language with Cham. We go to the same markets. But there was a custom post separating us. Have we ever claimed to be part of Cham? No. So that is not an issue. Ethnicity and originality has no meaning, as Mr. Nso has said, as Mr. Ghana has said, not only in Africa, but all over the world. So that's a stupid, muted argument. That is only meant to not to help anybody. Even in Nigeria itself, different tribes are found in different states. So there's no forceful repatriation of populations to please one or the other group. It doesn't work like that. And again, back to the international thing that you tried to raise. In international relations, countries invest not because they like the people there. They have an economic interest. They don't care if someone is coming to exploit gas from Bakassi. He does not care who lives in Bakassi. What they're looking at is what are they going to get from there? And they're asking, if they ask us to go and build a road here, build a school here, would the profits, would the turnover be enough to cover that? That's their interest. They're not interested in your personality as an individual. You can come and be a community hall in a palace. It has no meaning. What is the difference between people living in Tico, in Miselele, and the Sawas living in Bikoko? They speak the same language. They dance the same dances. The way they stand up and go and fish. But the people in Miselele, Modeka, are they Douala people by international
You even
relations?
brought in
No.
Miss Selele into this discussion as though you knew that I wanted to use Barrister Ghana to get us into Miss Selele discussion because there are arguments that the boundary of Southern Cameroon is not in the so-called bridge, that it has
Mongo.
to do the Mongo Bridge. Barrister Ghana, please.
Yeah,
So you see,
again,
South Cameroon is having border issues almost everywhere between Douala and Bakwiri. You know, it is poorly calculated, and there are lots of issues, Mr. Ghana.
And before he answers, Paddy, I want to say that some people, some of Ambazonians are claiming that the boundary between Ambazonia and La Republique of Cameroon is at the Mongo, at the bridge, at the Buri Bridge. That
No, it's not
Bonaberi
a
is
claim. I am doing a study, and I think Barrister Ghana has given me
Bonaberi is in
material in
southern
that
Cameroon.
regard. It's not just a claim. Barrister Ghana has material that proves that the boundary is at the Mongo Bridge, not the, you know, you want to talk about that very briefly before we have a break and then come back to advise the international community in Nigeria and La Republic du Cameroon on this peninsula.
correct. If you go to the original settlements, I've forgotten the names of the French and the English gentlemen who signed the demarcation line between British Cameroons and French Cameroons. You'll be right. Wuri and west of Wuri would belong to the Southern Cameroons. But again, this issue of demarcation of boundaries, where you can cross one street and you be in one state, and you cross the other, you go back just a few steps, you are in a different state. It's something that is across the world. I live in Kansas City. Kansas City straddles between the state of Missouri and the state of Kansas. And the only thing that separates it is a state line. In fact, if you come to Kansas City and you're driving around Kansas City and you've not lived in Kansas City, you would not be able to tell at most times if you were in the state of Missouri or if you were in the state of Kansas. You could cross the street to eat at a restaurant and you'll be in Kansas, and then you could go across the street to put gas in your car and you'll be in the state of Missouri. So, but these are mature legal systems, mature institutions, democratic institutions accept this. And as Barrister Mbehese said, people focus on economic interest, and you comply with the laws of that jurisdiction to pursue your economic interest. So this noise that is coming from Nigerian activists about Bakassi being part of Nigeria, dead on arrival. It's a dog that will absolutely not hunt.
Ask the question.
Okay,
Let me
that's a
add
great
something,
one.
Paddy.
Okay,
Let me add
please
something,
go ahead,
Paddy.
gentlemen. Please, you have the floor.
Paddy,
Well,
between
okay, sorry.
Let's do it
between
interchangeably. Let's start with Barrister Tim,
no,
please.
between the Buri and the southern Cameroon, that's the Fako. Where is the international boundary? Is it not on the Buri, the Mongo River, or is it in the Buri? Because as of independence, I'm talking as of independence, because that's what Article 4 of the African Charter says. As of independence, I know that the boundary between the southern Cameroons and La Republique runs through the Mongo River. But if now there's a document talking about the Vuri River, then I beg to find out where
Let
is
me
the
answer.
southern Cameroon's boundary as of independence between the Fako and Vuri.
Well,
Let me
there's a
let
difference
me try to
between
answer.
at independence, and there's a difference between the demarcation of that territory as of the
Exactly.
League
And
of
it is the
Nations.
difference. It's that difference I want to get.
Correct.
What I
As
was
of the
trying to
League
say
of
is,
Nations,
sorry.
Go ahead, Barrister.
I was trying to say this.
Yes, sir.
When the scramble for Africa was going on, it is recorded. The whole of what they call the Vuri, Douala in particular, was British. Was all British. When Africa's Eseka settled in Victoria, he had passed through Douala. If you go through the record, you see letters from the kings of Douala appealing to Great Britain, the Queen of England, to come and protect them. They were all British. But the boundaries became settled in 1884 when the German territory, that area called Cameroon, was recognized as a German protectorate under German influence. At that time, the boundary was settled at the present Mongo Bridge. In fact, before that, the French had written to the British, begging them to allow them have Douala because they are Central African Republic. They had Chad. These places were landlocked. They needed access to the sea. And the British ceded the area, said, okay, take this. We have a Lagos seaport there. We can give you this. But from 1884, when they settled on Cameroon under Germany, the boundary was settled at the Mongo.
At the Mongo River.
The Mongo River. And so
Correct.
that is how it was done. And so the idea of somebody thinking left and right, the boundary, I've said it before, the boundaries in Africa were never designed by Africans. For example, when they came to resigning these agreements in Douala and saying that they were colonizing Cameroon, did the chief of Douala know the front of Banso? Did he know the chief of Nkambe? He had never been there. So the boundaries, as when the boundary of West Cameroon or Cameroon under UK are defined as per the boundary of German Cameroon. When they divided the two into protectorates and then the League of Nations, and later on trust territories, they were basing the boundaries as of the German occupation. That was the boundary marks as they stand now. I have some in my own village, still standing there. Dividing two villages between East Cameroon and West Cameroon, they were put by the Germans, by the UN, by League of Nations then in 1919.
And those are our
So-
boundaries as of independence.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we don't. The boundaries that we had as a colony.
I want to have a clarification here so that our audience can learn something. I'm happy Barrister Tim brought it up to our attention, the protectorate and the colonies. The difference between the two protectorates and the colony of German Cameroon. That leads to our discussion on today. And do you think that there could possibly be a border dispute between Southern Cameroon and the Republic du Cameroon when Southern Cameroon want to claim their territory from the Bonaberi Bridge? That's where you will talk, and then we'll have a major break. After the break, you gentlemen will come back to advise Cameroon, Nigeria, and the international community when it has to do with the Bakassi. Barrister Ghana, this is a big one for you, please. You have the floor.
If you look at it, if you look at Articles 76A and B of the UN Charter, it is designed to avoid or to preempt against conflict between nations. So the best route would be to have a settlement that preempts conflict, because the world prospers when there is less conflict. We saw it with Hitler. Hitler thought that Germany could gain more through warfare, through aggression. Germany ended up losing more. There is nobody on this planet Earth with half a brain who thinks that at the end of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia, Russia would have gained more. By the end of it, Russia would have lost over 100,000 troops on the battlefield. Russia would have lost over 2 million of its productive population. Russia would have lost about 80% of their army, just because they thought that they could resort to military means rather than diplomatic and international norms, international rules, international laws to settle that conflict there. And so there are abundant examples to see how the international community, to see how Nigeria, to see how French Cameroon, to see how Ambazonia should tune in to settle this conflict. Because in the long run, the one thing that we also need to know is that in the long run, things become regional. For example, in Europe, after all the wars that they fought, then they got into the European Coal and Steel Union, which turned into the European Economic Community, which turned into the European Union, and they are all developing a common market into a common political union. 30, 50 years from now, we might see the same thing developing, well, not even 30 years from now, where we're already seeing it develop in West Africa, where the Economic Community of West African States is developing and morphing into not just an economic union, but eventually into a political union. So these little disputes regarding resources are going to all be quelled down. So let Nigeria, let French Cameroon focus on the bigger picture, on the economic maxim that we all win when we settle problems peacefully, than people trying to think that they got bigger armies, that they got trigger-happy guns, and that they might try to seize resources that do not belong to their territory. There's also a saying that says, mankind only becomes wise when they have exhausted all other options. Let me repeat that. Mankind only becomes wise when they have exhausted all other options. The Iraqis have become wise about their border dispute with Kuwait once they've exhausted the option of trying to seize those oil fields by war. Russia is eventually will become wise once they have lost so many troops on the battlefield and ruined so much economic potential. Again, a wise person learns from experience. A wiser person learns from a wise person's experience.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've had an elaborate discussion for about 90 minutes. Before we get into the conclusion, we'll be having Kinaj, a gospel minister from Bali, LGA. We'll listen to her beautiful music and have her talk to us for about 5 minutes. Then you gentlemen will come back to conclude by advising the international community, La République du Cameroon and Nigeria, as it has to do with the Bakassi Peninsula. Stay tuned.
If I turn away from you, where do I go? If I don't listen to you, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe without you? Lord, I give you all my body and soul. If you turn your back on me, where do I go? If you take away your grace, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe without you? My Lord, I give you all my body and soul. I believe in you, Lord, I believe in you. I don't need another miracle. I believe in you. I believe in you, Lord, I believe in you. I only need to hear your word. I believe in you.
here we have Kinash here with this beautiful piece. Good evening and welcome to ABC Amber Television. How are
Thank
you
you very
today?
much. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's amazing. When I saw this song, I thought the best thing that would happen is not just to have my audience enjoy, but to get to know you. I understand you're from Bali, AG. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, very quickly?
Yes, I am actually from Balinyonga, precisely, but I'm currently based in the United States. So,
Yeah, this is gospel. You're a gospel artist. What is your driving force?
well, I believe that in life, once you are able to realize what your purpose is in life, it becomes a great thing because I always tell people I would rather celebrate the day I discovered purpose than the day I was born because you were born for a reason. We were created, each created for a purpose. And once you discover that purpose, I think you have found meaning in life. So, um, me being able to come to this point where I actually realized that this is what God had for me or what God has for me, it was the greatest day of my life. And I'm glad that I'm actually fulfilling that right now.
Purpose. Purpose. Gave this song, I believe. And that's all. I believe. I love the lyrics. But what is the spirit behind the song?
That's right. So actually, it has been a long road for me personally as an individual, especially with my Christian journey. I've had a lot of ups and downs here and there, and I always get to the point where I'm like, is it worth it actually being a Christian? Because I get many people like, oh, you're a young beautiful girl, you don't have to be doing all this church thing, and it gets me. As time goes on and I study the word of God and I begin to realize who God is, even when you try to sway one side, you realize that nothing is better than being in the presence of God. And over the years, out of my experiences, I've realized that once I put my trust and faith and believe in God, He's able to take me to whatever length that I want to get to. So that's why in the song I'm like, this if I turn away from you, where else can I go? Like if you take away your grace from me, because even serving you, I definitely need your grace to do that which I have to do. So if you take away that grace, I won't be able to fulfill it, especially with the challenges that come with a young girl serving God. It seems very abnormal sometimes, but once the grace of God is with you and you believe, because in the entire Bible, God is trying so much to make us just believe in Him. He says, if you can just believe, all things are possible. And what as Christians we have struggled with is that even right in the church, you find a lot of people who don't believe in God, but you're in the church. Meaning, sometimes the preacher might say you're healed, and you're just saying amen because you want to say it, but then you have to believe it that it is possible. And just like the word of God says, if you can only believe, God will definitely
All
do
things
all
are
things.
possible. So, what do
Yes.
you believe to achieve with this song in the short and long term?
So actually, we have been sent on earth as messengers. Even as gospel singers, we are preachers through gospel music. So, definitely one thing I want to achieve is me being able to get people to realize that all they need to do as Christians is believe in God. And that once you believe in God, believe in His word, believe in His promises, everything is possible. Once you believe in His prophecies over you and what He has decreed in His word, not the word of man. So I'm hoping that young Christians like myself, or young girls, or young people out there, why not the old, whatever category or whatever age, whatever tribe, whatever nation, I just want to be able to gets people's faith in God increased, because it is the times are very much turning around. Things are getting more complicated, wars and battles, and obviously these are the signs of the end time. And if we can, I hope that the message of faith goes into the hearts of people, and I'm hoping that people's faith in God will increase. The Bible says if your faith is as small as a mustard seed, it can move mountains. So I'm hoping that through this song, many people would turn to realize that God is all that they need. And once they have Him in their lives, they can, begin to do things with more assurance, more confidence, knowing that there's a power that is backing them, there's a spirit that is backing them, and they can certainly achieve it. Especially me coming from a country where the Cameroon industry has not been opened up to the world yet. I absolutely want to appreciate all those that are doing a great work so far. Elizabeth, take care, Prosper Menko, and the rest. I really want to appreciate God for them. And I'm hoping that together we can make the Cameroon gospel music worldwide, because we have a lot that God has deposited inside of us, and we want to make sure that it reaches the world and the ends of the earth, because this is the end time. So we want to spread the gospel as much as we can.
Thank you very much for coming. The young, beautiful gospel minister, Kinaj, believes that in gospel music you can find solace. We are glad to have you, and I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for coming. I look forward to see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I believe that was a good break. Let's get back to this discussion and nail it. We got more people to listen to us, and it's time to talk to those who are imposters in the Bakassi Ridge Oil Peninsula. I would start with you, Barrister Tim. If you would have to advise this government on policy and public statements to make, as the Titans are fighting on a land that really doesn't belong to them, what would you say?
This is what I would say. See, the issue of boundaries and communities living across boundary lines, it did not start with Africa. It did not start with Cameroon either. For those of us who live in the United States, and I'm sure many are here, if you go to Texas, you drive through to Arkansas, there's a town there called Texarkana. It's a town built between the boundary of Arkansas and Texas. And they've taken the name Texarkana. And in that place they do business. They know what business taxes are paid in Arkansas, what business taxes are paid in Texas, and they merge the two, and they do successful business. And so the idea of invading territories just because you want to exploit their resources is not going to help you. It doesn't help. It is a time bomb. Another good example in Africa is this. We've heard about Eritrea fighting with Ethiopia. Why did Ethiopia want to own Eritrea? We also heard that Ethiopia was never colonized. Yeah, they were not colonized. Why? Because Ethiopia is landlocked. They're on the mountains. So they thought that they could take Eritrea, which has a sea coast, and they want to ship their gold, whatever thing they have there as minerals, easily. And they thought they could fight them physically by war and take over because they are bigger. They did not succeed. Today we have Eritrea established after hostilities by Ethiopia. So why not, if they are considered that we are landlocked and gone into agreement with Eritrea, they would have had a better outcome. How to use the Eritrean ports, seaports. And both parties would benefit. The same thing will apply to Ambazonia. What do we tell the international community? I said earlier, international community, investors, they're interested only in money. They're interested in their interest. But my advice to them would be this. Before you get your investment in any particular part of Ambazonia in particular, if not Africa in general, do a bit of study, do some history. Don't just invest, do some history. And then you will realize that where the interest lies, if you want to have a safe investment. If these people coming for oil deals in Bakassi understood that it's not enough to say, yeah, they won the case. There are people who are more interested, who sit right there, who are Ambazonians. That will make a better business for you. Again, I said, yeah, when we started, now look, Bakassi should not be where it was, where it is right now. If the resources from Bakassi had any returns at all, the money they get from the oil there, which they refine in Limbe and ship through Douala, will make Bakassi a very developed place. In fact, the Sonora thing in Limbe is not even a Cameroonian industry. There are foreign companies doing these things. And then they are paying taxes not even to Limbe, they are paying taxes to Douala. How do we get out of it? How do we get out of it? Even Limbe, 2 days ago, I saw a video. People in Limbe, in Victoria, cannot pick trash in mile 4. That's 6 kilometers from the trash is engulfing the town because they have no money. If Sonora were paying their taxes to Victoria, it should be one of the biggest, richest councils in the whole of Cameroon. If CDC, the second largest employer in the country, were paying taxes to Limbe, they should have enough money to do what they cannot even do. But yet, these two large things, Sonora, the only one in Cameroon, pays taxes in Douala. CDC, based in Bota, pays taxes in Douala. They have a big store building there at the head office of the CDC, but their shipping offices in Douala, so they pay taxes there. Is it because they don't know now? Who would think that Mr. Mosonge, as a prime minister, former general manager of CDC, does not know that? Who would think that Mr. Enoni from Victoria West Coast, Bakoreman, who was prime minister and the best financial Cameroon has ever produced, with Antelope, did not know that they were cheating them? These were high government officials put right up there. And so what has Victoria to show for CDC? 1. What have they to show for Sonora? 2. 0. The other thing they have inherited is land disputes. Land disputes orchestrated by the government to sell CDC land and to gain money for themselves, not to benefit the population. So the international community, your interest is money, but don't invest without investigation. Investigate, know the rightful owners. Don't be tapping oil from Victoria and then somebody is giving you tax receipts from Douala. Say, no, this is wrong. You can do that. Don't ship timber from Manfe. It gets to Limbe, to Douala, to throw into the sea, and you stamp from Bolova. That's international fraud. That's the recipe for war. Again, from the example of Ethiopia and Eritrea, you can learn a lot. Today, Ethiopia is an independent country. Eritrea is an independent country. Ethiopia cannot engulf Eritrea.
Sovereign territory.
So there's no way, no matter the size of Ambazonia, we're not going to submerge ourselves to La République du Cameroun just because we're small. Now, it does not work elsewhere. It will not work with us. Thank you.
Barrister Fu, in conclusion, do you agree? Do you think that some individuals, the international community, and those individuals high signed by Barrister Team are really ignorant of the true honors or the reality of what the ground is? In conclusion, please, Barrister Fu.
Yes, I don't think so. But let me give an advice to Nigeria, to Cameroon, to the international community, and to the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, South Cameroon. I start with Nigeria. Nigeria, the largest African nation, you are called upon to respect international law, to respect the judgment at the International Court of Justice in The Hague as it concerns Bakassi, and also to respect the treaty signed between you and, and, and the Republic of Cameroon in what they call the Green Tree Treaty. Respect that and stay off the issue of Bakassi. La République du Cameroun, I would advise that you have jurists, you have prominent lawyers in your citizenship, in your citizenry, and they should advise you to withdraw your forces from from Federal Republic of Ambazonia in conformity with the Article 4 of the African Charter and in conformity with Resolution 1608 that you refuse to implement, and quit the territory of the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia, and which territory includes Bakassi. At the time you entered and signed that treaty, the Green Tree Treaty, and also defended the case in The Hague, you claim without any evidence that the Southern Cameroon belongs to you because you forcefully invaded the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia on the 30th of September 1961. You are advised to withdraw. You are advised to come to the negotiating table so that the government, the interim government of the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia, will negotiate the terms of separation with you peacefully and end this war. To the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, when we finally actualize our independence, that is getting back our sovereignty, like my colleague Barrister Ghana and Barrister Tim have said, we will have to develop with immediate effect all settlements, all our people in boundaries surrounding us with La République du Cameroon with immediate effect to avoid any incursion by anybody, and that includes Bakassi, the boundary between Bakassi and Nigeria, between the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, and Nigeria. The Southern Cameroon government that will be in place should develop all those areas, including where Barrister Tim talked about Chang and Libialem. And I will add Manu and the Ejagam of Manu and the Ejagam of Nigeria, and Bakassi and Nigeria. Those areas should immediately be developed to avoid any incursion from any trigger-happy people who are looking at our territory with the intent of trying to take part in its resources. And to the international community, there is a war taking place between La République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia. And all the powers that be in the world are watching. And nobody, I repeat, nobody in the world has taken any meaningful action to ensure that this genocide that is taking place on the people of the Southern Cameroons comes to an end. We're calling on the world, therefore, that you voted for Resolution 1608 according independence to the Southern Cameroons. We're calling on you to actualize your vote and recognize the nation, the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia, with immediate effect, so that peace can return to this land that we call our land of our birth.
This rich Gulf of Guinea. There is an intricate.
That is the advice. Listen, now let me finish. That is the advice that the international community should cease and desist from conspiracy, and especially Britain, to ensure that all British companies or affiliates or whatever have nothing to do with La République du Cameroon and signing agreements with La République du Cameroon and implementing those agreements in the former British Southern Cameroons Ambazonia. That is armed robbery in daylight. So that would be my advice, and that would be my conclusion, Paddy.
Thank you very much. Okay, Barrister Ghana, everybody watching this show is waiting for your advice. I can't wait for it myself. There's a lot involved. The Gulf of Guinea is on shaky waters now. If any mess happens in southern Cameroon and in the Bakassi Peninsula, that happens to be the nucleus of wealth in this sub-African region. Talk to us in conclusion, please.
All right. Before I get into the advice that I'll give these parties here, I'll first want to speak a little bit about our three comrades who were arrested for incidents relating to their participation in defending our people, their participation towards our emancipation quest. These three people I'm talking about are Mr. Claude Chi, Mr. Francis Chenyi, and Mr. Nestor Langmi. Were in court on Tuesday the 10th, and that was in relation to the bail hearing for Mr. Francis. And we could see how things are progressing. But before I delve a little bit into how things are progressing, I want to appeal to Ambazonians. I want to appeal to each and every one of you who is listening. Whether you are in the United States, whether you are in Europe, whether you are in Africa, whether you are in Ambazonia or you are in French Cameroon, we need to contribute the funds to defend these our comrades. We need to contribute funds to be able to assist their families. I know I've made appeals before, and it is your right. There is nothing wrong with donating funds that are exclusively meant to help the families and to help the legal process that is ongoing. You can donate again through Cash App 346 464 5055. That number again is 346 464 5055. You can donate through Zelle and PayPal by going through donations@amberlandhumanitarian.com. Donations@amberlandhumanitarian.com. So again, when we're in court on Tuesday, attending the bail hearing for Mr. Cheney, it was everything did not go temporarily in our favor, but the overarching construct of those hearings, you could see the judge belaboring the point and asking the federal prosecutors, and they are doing their job. I have nothing against the federal prosecutors, but you could see the judge belaboring the point of asking the federal prosecutors to explain to her, the judge in this case, what was the difference, or what is the difference between Ukrainians in the United States who are contributing money to buy drones to be used against Russia, who are contributing money to buy landmines to be used against Russia, who are contributing money to buy tanks to be used against Russia. What is the difference between allowing Ukrainians, between that being a right of Ukrainians versus that being a right of Ambazonians to be able to contribute funds to defend themselves against the genocidal regime of Yaoundé, supported by France, which has to date killed over 45,000 Ambazonians, which has raped women, burned cities, obliterated our land. So you could see the judge inviting that aspect, questioning, why are we arresting these guys for doing the same thing that Ukrainians are doing in contributing to help defend Ukrainians against the onslaught from Russia? So that was a very interesting unfolding in the court. And if this ever makes it to trial, if this ever makes it to trial, then that, or those green shoots from the judge, gives us a lot of hope that most likely our comrades are going to be free from these charges that are being placed against them. So donate to help their families, donate for us to be able to hire the legal resources to bring to bear on them. Regarding the situation of Bakassi, I'm going to get a little geopolitical here. And I'm speaking to French Cameroon. I'm speaking to Nigerians and the government of Nigeria. I know I'm a resident and a citizen of the United States, but there's something we need to know. The big powers always like to come foment trouble amongst developing countries. Because when they foment these troubles, then the developing countries fight amongst themselves. Guess who they'll go buy arms from? We don't have an arms manufacturer on the African continent. They'll go buy these arms from the developing or from the arms manufacturers in the West or in the East. China, the United States, Japan, Germany, etc., etc. So to even start to foment trouble about who owns Bakassi is being foolish, because it will give the opportunity to suck out African wealth and destroy Africa's productive capacity to repay the loans that will be taken to buy all of these arms. If you look at the case between Kuwait and Iraq, leading to Gulf War I and Gulf War II. Let's start with Gulf War I. The American ambassador to Iraq, if a lady was having audiences with Saddam Hussein when Saddam Hussein was planning on invading Iraq. Colin Powell was the army chief of staff then. And the American ambassador was telling Saddam Hussein that when it comes to Arab issues, America is not involved. This is documented. It is reported that Colin Powell sent a cable to the White House. Bush 1 was the president then, hours before the invasion, telling Bush 1 that the Iraqi army is in an absolute offensive posture and invasion is imminent. Just like they were telling the Ukrainians that the Russian invasion was imminent. What did Bush 1 communicate to Colin Powell? As it is reported, Bush 1 said, sit tight, do nothing. A few hours after Iraq invaded Kuwait, Bush 1 strolled to the Rose Garden at the White House, and excuse my words, because there's a little curse word in it, but these were Bush's one's words. He said, we are going to kick Saddam's ass. The Gulf states leaders, the sheikhs of Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, they flew to the White House. They flew to Camp David, met with Bush 1, and they all had to contribute towards the fund to expel Saddam from Kuwait, exporting wealth from the Gulf area. What do I mean by this? If Nigeria is wise, if French Cameroon is wise, what will benefit Ambazonia in future is also going to benefit French Cameroon and Nigeria, because it will only come to enhance regional trade. Look at the situation in Equatorial Guinea. There are a lot of Cameroonians who are doing business there and who are flourishing. And that is only leading to the development of that geopolitical area / economic. And so it is being foolish and not learning from the lessons of history to start fomenting territorial disputes, claiming Bakassi to belong to Nigeria, when there might be forces beyond this region who might be coming in and in overt as well as covert ways, encouraging the fomenting of these troubles, when their real aim is to possibly provoke wars where they are going to be the ones selling the arms and they are going to be the ones benefiting, all leading to an economic drain from the area and indebting generations to come. So it's absolutely foolish. And to all of those Nigerian activists who are there on social media, buying into all of this hype and echoing it, you are playing into the hands of the same colonialists and the same imperialists who enslaved Africa and who are looking at modern ways to deprive Africa of its resources, of its development, and of a prosperous future. Thank you very much.
And most especially to fractionize Africa and Africans so that they keep fighting and being distracted in industrialization. Why they keep progressing. Thank you, gentlemen, for you're all busy people. Thank you for creating the time to talk with us. Thank you. Next Saturday, we'll definitely get on another dimension of our discussion, hopefully, or the Saturday after next. But that notwithstanding, our people look up to you for education, re-education, and enhancing our nation's pride, like you have done here this evening. Fellow Amazonians, ladies and gentlemen, Southern Cameroonians watching this program, we still have um, the lady from Balenyonga. It would appear there's something she forgot to tell us how to get this song and where to get this song. So she will briefly be doing that. So I still have Kinash in the studio to give us. I'm sorry about that, and thank you for standing by. If we want to listen to this song, if we want to get it, are you on iTunes? Are you marketing it? What is it? I know it's a single.
Yes. So the song is currently available on all social media platforms, Boomplay, YouTube, basically all social media platforms. You have it on Amazon, you have it on Audio Mac as well. You can have it on Apple Play, Apple Music, and every other TikTok, all of it. It's on all social media platforms, Facebook, all of it.
Taking advantage of social media to enhance evangelism. Congratulations and thank you. The best I can say here is more grace. I pray that God will expand your wisdom. And in fact, Cr- uh, Christ has been made unto us wisdom. So that's your wisdom. It's amazing to have you minister to God's people, heal the souls in a world where a lot are soaked in secular music. The audience are pleased with you from Balinyonga. And I understand you just left the Cameroons only last year or 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, that was like 3 years ago. Yes.
Okay, congratulations. I'll have an exclusive talk with you and other musicians one of these days. For now, let's keep enjoying your music as we round off this show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, it's been a long day. I have so much to do, but then I cannot leave you to go without letting you know that we are definitely getting into the year. In fact, we are in the year of acceleration. And you can see from the French briefing this evening that everything has been accelerated. We're setting the stage, we're taking the pace, and it can only escalate. There is no stopping us in Amazonia. Thank you for being a part of this program. See you next time. Good night.
Hey, da ba de da da de, di bi da ba de ba da 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 da. If I turn away from you, where do I go? If I don't listen to you, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe without you? Lord, I give you all my body and soul. If you turn your back on me, where do I go? If you take away your grace, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe without you? My Lord, I give you all my body and soul. I believe in you. Lord, I believe another miracle. I believe in you. I believe in you. Lord, I believe in you. I only need to hear your word. I believe in you. If I turn away from you, where do I go? If I don't listen to you, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe without you? I'll give you all my body and soul. If you turn your back on me, where do I go? If you take away your breath, what can I do? Why should I think of leaving you? How do I breathe? Lord, I give you all my body and soul. I believe in you. Lord, I believe in you. I don't need another miracle. I believe in you. I believe in you. Lord, I believe in you. I only need to hear your word. I believe in you. I believe, I believe, I believe, Mr. K Mix.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa